Each series of Blake's 7 had 13 episodes, so by now we're almost at the midpoint of the first one. The main thrust of the early chapters were to gather together the team, but now that they're all together, and the crappy planet of leprous Ewoks has been left behind, we can get back to them working on the revolution properly. We'll start it at this alien brewery. I think we should liberate a few kegs, for the good of the revolution. Security is essential, so we have deployed the best robot that could be obtained from a Radio Shack going out of business sale. Yes, sir. Evildoers beware. This robot has 24 Ks of RAM and a top speed of 2 miles an hour. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Blake teleports in and tries his best to evade this wily guard, who is so sophisticated that it will literally shoot anything that moves, including a cable that was swinging because Blake touched it. The robot then grabs onto the burning cable, although we never know why. My guess is that it probably was making an arrest. Villa is sent down, not quite against his will, but only just, because there's a lot of locks at a secure facility. You buy them in bulk and you might as well use them. That igloo cooler that he's hauling around is full of his tools, presumably acquired from some shady dealers with some of the loot that they found on the ship. But you can't run a revolution without getting the things you need. Well, that's 10,000 space bucks down the drain. After dodging another security robot, which involves the complicated act of lying down on the asphalt, as if you need further proof these things are terrible, Villa explains how he's going to convince the gate that Blake is authorized, and by his choice of finger, no doubt is showing what he thinks of Blake's plan. If you're wondering why they don't just climb over this chain-link fence, Villa points out that the security system is set up to monitor all passage here. In other words, the gate is just a sign that you're allowed through. And for anyone else, it's an idiot trap. Now I'm wondering if the robots are meant to lure spies into a false sense of security. But then again, they never counted on the wiliness of Villa.
Hello there! How are you? Excuse me wandering about your premises, but I wonder if you can help me. I'm an escaped prisoner.
They say honesty is the best policy. I admire his courage as at least giving it a try.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I was a thief, but recently I've become interested in sabotage. In a small way, you understand. Nothing too ambitious. I hate vulgarity, don't you? Anyway, I've come to blow something up. What do you think will be most suitable?
Hey, you didn't even give them a chance to answer. Time to sneak in and do their business, assuming they're not caught. So, a couple of guys who assume I don't have peripheral vision are out there. I told you your robot was a waste of money. They burst in and take the bad guys prisoner, then beam down Callie, Gan, and Avon to get ready to blow things up, which they say in front of the prisoners. That's for their benefit, though. The real plan is that Avon is going to steal an encrypted receiver so they can keep up to date on all the communications by the Federation. Blowing up this place will hopefully convince the bad guys that it was atomized in the blast. But alas, Villa is spotted and the guard sounds the alarm. Interestingly, this happens despite the fact that Villa was armed and could have easily shot him. This shows that despite all that has happened, the killing that he did when his friends' lives were in danger was a single anomaly. And if you recall his horror when he did do that, why it likely is going to remain an anomaly. During all this, Callie gets distracted and one of the technicians jumps her. Now, there's no shame in losing to an IT guy when they're doing something to your computer, but when they jump you, that does not prove you're a good revolutionary. But we quickly see why it was the technician and not the guard who had to do that, because once the guard is left alone with Callie, he pulls off his mask, puts down the weapon, and proceeds to fart around instead of watching the prisoner, so that Callie is free to get up and attack him. His only success is by accident, as during his anemic defense, the bracelet goes flying off amidst the junk, and without that, Callie can't call for help or get beamed up. That means that she gets caught in the blast, and everyone is so busy dealing with their new toy, and the fact the Federation seems to have noticed the explosion, that they forget about her and leave her behind.
Detectors confirm massive launch of long-range interceptor rockets. They have locked on to Liberator's course and are in pursuit.
Maintain optimum evasive strategy.
I was hoping to try out half-ass strategy, but if you insist, we'll do optimum again. Callie's finally noticed to be missing, but only because Blake wants her to help Avon on the new toy, and she doesn't seem to be doing that. Blake is appalled to learn that on their first real mission, they forgot somebody, and naturally he wants to go back, but it's quickly pointed out that his plan would be to somehow get past a massive force of interceptor rockets that are here for no other reason than to catch them, beam down into a place that is now being poured over by hundreds of Federation personnel, to look for someone in a building that just exploded. Perhaps you should swing by the gift shop since this would be such a cakewalk, huh? The significance of this episode is that we meet two nemeses for the crew of the Liberator. The first is the newly promoted Servalan, originally intended as a one-off character like those guys in the first episode, but had far more staying power than originally conceived. And she's pulled in because Blake has become a lightning rod. Every time something bad happens to the Federation, no matter what, the story gets credited to Blake, with greater and greater embellishment. Really, there's no possible way you could have caused that bird to crap on the Prime Minister's head. So to deal with him, she has assigned the job to a special agent, Travis, which raises concerns given the whole massacre thing he was involved in.
There are other incidents on his record, unfortunate incidents.
He has caused the administration some political embarrassment in the past. In dealing with even minor insurrections, he has been overzealous.
This guy's got to be rough if even Davros' #1 henchman gets nervous around him. But Servalan insists that he's the one to bring in Blake, which is well timed because their rockets just exploded out of a sheer sense of futility. The Liberator is free and clear, but Blake is still very glum about losing Callie, and nothing Jenna can say will cheer him up. When words of comfort fail, she gets down to brass tacks and points out the reality of Callie and their situation, and the possibility that this was something that she wanted after her guilt of surviving while the rest of her resistance force all died. Not a bad bit of insight for someone whose primary job is operating the teleport or saying what the ship is currently doing. Blake decides the best therapy is mayhem, so they head off to blow up a Federation repair facility, inhibiting their deep space efforts and avenging Callie at the same time. And if we pick up the dry cleaning while we're there, that'll just round out the whole trip. Back at the wheel in space, Ray, a lover of Servalan as well as a subordinate, expresses his misgivings about Travis, a guy who continued an attack even after the enemy offered unconditional surrender. Though I suppose if you want to be pedantic, stop shooting at us is technically a condition. But Servalan is convinced that Blake requires someone absolutely ruthless, and that's Travis. And here's the man himself, Blake's nemesis, and given that Terry Nation, creator of the Daleks, made him, Travis is entirely fitting. He has only one eye, he has one arm for manipulation, and the other arm is actually a gun. He's without pity or remorse, and his orders are seek, locate, destroy. And given the Daleks frequently say seek, locate, exterminate, it was either Nation looking to avoid making it too obvious, or else Travis is more open to pointless destruction than even the Daleks are. The big difference, though, is that Travis is out for revenge against Blake, because he's the one who did this to him. So when he shows up at the site of the explosion, Travis goes over it with a fine-tooth comb, noting that if all Blake wanted was to blow the place up, seconds, not minutes, were what was called for. Demolition is precise, sure, but this was disruptive sabotage, not a controlled implosion. Of course, it could be the work of the Mad Bomber's polar opposite, the compulsive bomber. Now I will destroy them all. Wait, that one there is too low. No, the other one's higher than that, see? Yeah, that. No, now you've made it crooked. Yeah, no, now it's not centered on the pillar like the other one is, which just... Forget it. You sort this out. If anyone needs me, I'm going to be washing my hands. Yes, again. Now, I've long mentioned my skepticism for the claim that Star Trek predicted the cell phone, but I present to you a definite truth. Blake 7 hilariously underestimated the cell phone.
Yes? Right.
Well, then again, perhaps the call was specifically made to his neck, and it would be rude of his head to reply. The call was about Callie being found. She's badly hurt but still alive, and thus of use to Travis in his efforts to get Blake. Step 1 is to heal Callie. Step 2 is to look at pictures of Blake making his O face. And Step 3 is to use her to draw Blake into a trap. Yes, good. The plan is moving forward like clockwork. The whole rivalry between him and Blake started when Travis was assigned to deal with Blake's raid on a government re-education facility. He knew how meticulous Blake was, so he did him one better. He and his men showed up 2 days before the meeting and hid in the basement, waiting. When everyone gathered for the meeting, Travis and his men emerged, and naturally all the guards were at the entrances and exits, not at the meeting. Knowing they were caught, Blake told his people to surrender. But despite that, Travis started gunning them all down. Blake got a gun away from one of the guards and shot Travis, giving him his distinctive wounds. So naturally they hate each other, Travis for the disfigurement and Blake for his callous murder. A search of the wreckage reveals a flaw in Blake's plan. They'd been forced to have Gann rip the component out of the damn thing, and so naturally they didn't put everything back again. This resulted in interior parts having scorch marks, something that wouldn't happen unless they were directly exposed to the blast rather than being blown clear. So when the device is found to be absent, they quickly figure out that Blake has it and is listening in. So rather than change the codes, Travis sends out a routine message mentioning Callie and where she's at, knowing that Blake is going to come back for her. And sure enough, that's exactly what Blake does. No real plan, but a chance to undo his most recent cock-up. But Travis is already there and waiting with the base commander.
How are your units deployed?
Oh, I just tell them where to go, and that's where they go. I use the radio or the intercom. No, I want to know where you put them. The intercoms? Oh, I keep one in my office and another... The men! Where did you send the men? Oh, sent them home. It's Sunday after all. Not to worry, the situation is taken care of. I'd like to see Blake get past our robot. Now, the Federation forces knows that the teleporter is a huge advantage, so they've set up a device to detect the displacement that takes place whenever a teleportation happens, so they'll know when and where he shows up. So Travis heads to the interrogation room where Callie is, because he wants to personally be there when Blake shows up. Just gotta get things ready first.
Now this won't hurt.
I meant it won't hurt me. But it's all for naught. Blake turned Travis' own trick around on him, showing up early and just waiting for him to bring Callie. Then he insults Travis by saying that he's too unimportant to kill. It's a nice touch, even if it is untrue. Travis keeps the patch there to make himself distinctive, so Blake will always know that it's him coming. Blake showing indifference to him is thus the highest insult he can offer. Travis is just one of 1,000 flunkies the Federation would send after him. There's no more point in killing him than in stopping an individual termite in your house. Well, Travis takes that personally and tries to shoot Blake with his gun hand, but Callie warns him and Blake smashes it. Just not a good day to be the bad guy. Seek, Locate, Destroy gets a stamp of must-see. It's a very info-dump kind of episode, but the insight into Blake and his new nemesis makes it work, and the infiltration at the start was a nice change from the disaster of the web. Villa and Jenna, who were both shoved in the background last time, get some larger scenes to help make up for that, though Callie needs to work a bit to stop being more of a liability than a help. Seek, Locate, Destroy is an interesting outing in its own right, and makes a promise for fascinating conflicts to come.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
Has it gone?
How did you get in there?
There isn't a lock I can't open, if I'm scared enough.